So
some people just don't want to fucking exercise. It's weird. They would so much rather go to a doctor and get a pill. It's so strange. It's
a lot of people.
Well, it's this fear of discomfort. People have this extreme feeling in their mind when it comes to their associations with exercise. They want to avoid discomfort. They feel like any type of exercise is just like something to be avoided. That's not for me. Fuck that. I don't want to sweat. I don't want to strain. And a lot of times this association that they have is about the beginnings of getting in shape. It's not about once you're actually fit. Because once you're actually fit, exercise is something you look forward to. It's an alleviation of stress. It feels great. Like if I can't get a workout in, I look at my schedule. I go, oh shit, I don't have any time for a workout, which means I'm not going to get that good feeling. And so instead of looking at it like, oh, I've got to go grunt and sweat, I'm thinking I'm not going to feel good. I'm not going to feel relaxed. I'm not going to feel carefree. And I'm not going to feel even appreciative. Like my appreciation of things, and it gets enhanced greatly after exercise. I just feel better. I feel like I can take things in for what they are rather than, you know, whatever sensory data that I'm getting from any event is just one more distraction that gets in my way. And you know, that's a lot of times how I look at things if I'm overstressed or if I'm working too much.
Totally beautifully put, because that's exactly like at least what's been shown from like neuroimaging studies is that exercise does what you're talking about is the executive function. You're talking about feeling good without that sensory stuff, which is the amygdala. It's the emotional center. That's been shown to be decreased in activity after exercise, whereas the executive function is increased. So it's exactly in the right direction, right? So you're able to logically think about this more and you feel good, and it's like you're not that sensory response, that like gut anxiety. You don't feel it as much. That part of your brain's actually quieter after exercise. Meditation does a similar thing. But if there was just a way to get this knowledge for people to understand, people that are adverse to exercising, you know, if there was just some way, and I'm really trying to find a way, because there are many people that I care about in my life that are that way and that feel depressed and are on some sort of, you know, antidepressant, which doesn't really work for them still. And so I'm trying to find a way, like how, like I can tell them, I'm having this conversation with you and you get it because you experience it. You exercise, you eat healthy, you experience these things. But for someone that's never experienced it, how do you communicate it to them?
It's so hard for people to start anything new. It's hard for people to start a pottery class that's not going to, you know, it's not going to be involved with any physical pain or any stress or any exhaustion. There's not that feeling that you get when you're really tired. You know, the feeling that you get, for me, is particularly difficult doing boring stuff like an elliptical machine. Like an elliptical machine to me, it's a great workout. It's awesome if I'm at a gym, because if I go to a gym like at a hotel and, you know, they have some bullshit weights but they have an elliptical machine, I go, okay, if this thing has a high setting, I can get a real workout in this. But those times when you're tired and you don't want to do it, they're so fucking boring. It's just shh, shh, shh. You have to listen to something. You have to watch something. Like other stimuli has to come in order to get you pumped up. But I know this because I've done it 1,000 times. For someone who hasn't done it 1,000 times, they get to that point, they're like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Oh my God, let me get a donut. You know, give me a coffee. I'm gonna go outside and smoke a cigarette. Woo, I feel better. You know, and it's so hard to get past that because we have all these connections in our mind when it comes to comfort and stress, comfort and like our bodies, for whatever reason, most people, their associations are to avoid anything that's uncomfortable. But it's so illogical because when you look at comfort and you look at success and progress and the feelings of accomplishment and of getting past certain hurdles in terms of like how you feel about life, a lot of those are connected to discomfort. Like discomfort is your friend. It really is. Like discomfort and not being happy and content with certain situations in life or certain feelings in life, they're massive motivators, and they're amazing at facilitating change, and yet are instinct is to avoid those and just sit on the couch and watch some fucking reality show about dudes who make moonshine with our jaw open, like, ugh. It's bizarre.
It is. It's too much of that like stimuli where you don't have to do anything and you can still like get that sensory information.
The need to act, like to need to actually go out there and act is so strong. It's such an important thing, but yet we resist it. Many people, I know you don't, I don't, but so many people do. But I feel the thing. I don't allow it to work, but I feel that. Fuck this, I don't want to work out. I feel it all the time, almost every time before I work out. I have at least an inclination to blow it off. I don't ever embrace it, but it's there. It's there with everybody. Like, no one is like completely 100% healthy and without any resistance.
Yeah. I wonder if also we were talking about this being a super ager. I wonder if there is some association there. We're looking at how it's important to push past that uncomfortableness, whether it's physical or mental, and that's linked to being a super ager. But what if it's just like the ability to make yourself do that is important too, right? It's not just the act that you're doing. It's not just the strenuous exercise, which is obviously good, and we know that it's good from science. But what if it's just being able to like push yourself? Like, maybe some people don't have that ability for whatever reason, or they just haven't tapped into it enough because they haven't really experienced it.
I think that's it. I think it's a learned thing, because if I take time off, like I got sick recently and I couldn't work out for like a week or 6 days or so, and the act of getting back into the gym, I think in a lot of ways we rely on momentum. We rely on the momentum of past experiences where you're just conditioned to do that. It's one of the things that you do. And for me, at least, when I get like really disciplined and really, I get really consistent with my workouts. One of the things that I almost feel momentum. I feel like there's like a push behind me, like, all right, like after I get out of the gym, I have a really good workout. I'm like, yeah, now I'm doing it. I'm doing it all the time now. And I'm looking forward to the next time. And it makes that resistance much weaker, and it makes my motivation and my discipline much stronger. I think a lot of it is based on just the consistency. It's one of the things that I talked about recently on the podcast. I said, like blowing something off, it's not just not good, like blowing off an exercise that you planned is not just bad for you physically, it's also bad mentally, because then that option is now available. The option to fuck off is available. And you did it before, and you're probably going to do it again, and you'll get mediocre results, not just in that aspect of your life, but maybe in all aspects of your life. Because I think that option to fuck off, when you embrace it, that is a pathway that you might choose when it comes to dealing with conflict in your personal life, dealing with business decisions, dealing with career decisions, like an uncomfortable decision that you might be faced with, where maybe you need to make a change as far as like what your pathway is in life, but you don't do it, and instead you fuck off. And that the inclination to fuck off, I think, that gathers momentum as well. The inclination to be disciplined, that comes with momentum too. And I think both things, like you take a path, like the path of the healthy person or the path of the fuck off, like both of them are available, and whichever path you embrace.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the same thing goes with like lying too. I mean, I think it's very bad to lie. Like, even if it's something that is really benign, like what they call a little tiny white lie.
You look great.
Yeah, that, because then you start making these neural connections in your brain, and you start to like get used to doing it, like you were saying. And I think that it just kind of dawned on me as you were saying this, that with the motivation and the momentum you were talking about, I think that's the same way. I think you're like building these neural pathways, these motivation pathways, and that's really important for that momentum to do it again and again. There was some studies, a few of them that have been done, where you can take a person and do that direct transcranial stimulation, which I don't know much about, but I remember these studies, and like stimulate a certain part of the brain that's involved in motivation, and you can motivate them to go to the gym. So you motivate them to actually go work out.
So that's in one of those electrodes they put on a specific area of the outside of your head, and then it's like a little 9-volt battery is attached to it, and it just zaps you a little bit.
Zaps you a little bit, and like activates a certain brain region. And that brain region it's activating specifically with this study I was talking about. Actually, there's a couple of them were involved in motivation, and that's probably with you and I. We already have those pathways activated because we're constantly forcing ourselves to go. I mean, I feel the same way. There are times when I'm like, God, I don't want to go for a run. Like, it's so hard.
But once you do it, goddamn, you feel great.
You feel great. And you know what? You accomplish something. So it's not only like you're feeling great from all the neural mechanisms that are being activated and all the biochemistry that's going on, but you have accomplished something. You pushed past something you didn't want to do, and you feel good about doing that.
After magnetic stimulation therapy, Wilmington woman finds motivation and energy. Yeah. There's a radio lab about this, a radio lab podcast. It's called 9-Volt Nirvana. And
they're pretty good. I like Radio Lab.
I love it. I love Radio Lab. And it actually deals with, it's the first story, the opening story is amazing because it deals with this woman who went to this like sniper training simulation video thing that they do where they put you in front, they give you like a fake gun, and they put you in front of a video screen, and a scenario plays out. And then the scenario, there's like a terrorist attack, and you have to take out the bad guys. And they did it with her, and it's 20 minutes long, and she was terrible. Like, she fucked it all up. It was just like a disaster. Like, she didn't respond correctly. Then they put these electrodes. What would you exactly call them? One of those things. It's electrodes. Yeah. So they put these on her brain or on the outside of her head in very specific areas and stimulated it, and then recreated it. And in the recreation, she was 100% effective. She killed all the bad guys, and she went through this 20-minute thing. And when it was over, when they told her that it was over, she thought they were fucking with her because she thought it was only 2 minutes. Like, yeah, like everything.
That is incredible.
Oh, it's amazing. The way she describes it is amazing. It's amazing.
It's a little scary too, just because, I mean, it's like, can you like program someone to do something? There's another study that was published like 2 years ago. Same thing, transcranial direct stimulation, and I'm so not an expert on any of this, but I just remember this study because it was trying to investigate what part of the brain's involved in consciousness, right? And so the study was designed in such a way where she was reading a book, and then they zapped her in a certain part of the brain, and she stopped reading the book, this woman, and like just looked at them like a zombie, like nothing, no talk, no. And then they zapped her again, and she started. She picked up right where she left off. Oh, had Jesus. No recollection at all of doing that. So this was like, trying to figure out if this part of the brain is involved in consciousness. Anyways, that was a little scary.
Well, that is a real concern, right? Because one of the things about this transcranial direct stimulation Radio Lab podcast was that they talked about how many people are out there just fucking experimenting, where there's a whole community online where people are talking about like experimenting with the voltages and experimenting with the placement. And
oh my goodness.
One guy did something, he lost his sense of taste, and like a bunch. Yeah,
people are just buying these and like doing it.
Yes,
like,
yes. Well, you can go. Well, it's like you can go to fucking Radio Lab. The consequences of a world where anyone with $20 and access to Radio Shack can make their own brain zapper. Yeah, that is that from Radio Lab from their podcast page.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing because there's apparently this gigantic community of it. Like, hold on a second. Go back up there and make that larger again. The last couple of years, TDCS, direct cranial stimulation, has been all over the news. Researchers claim that juicing the brain with just 2 milliamps, 9-volt battery, can help with everything from learning languages to quitting smoking to overcoming depression. And so they brought in a neuroscientist, Michael Wysand, at Wright State Research Institute into the studio to tell them how it works. Really interesting.
Very interesting. I feel like in terms of like treating depression or helping people get motivated to go to the gym, it may really have relevance.
Yeah.
If it help,
But it also might be like slapping a supercharger on an old Chevy Nova and you blow the fucking engine on the thing,
It's true. It's true. I mean, we don't really know enough about what's going on. I certainly wouldn't be experimenting with that right now.
Let's do it.
Are you doing it?
Yeah, fuck it. I'm thinking about going to Radio Shack right after I get out of here. Not really, but sort of. I mean, it's just interesting. It's amazing that we are really some sort of a system, and you can juice that system with like a little electricity here, a little vitamin there, a little broccoli sprouts here.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the weirdest thing about people, and one of the weirdest things about people, is how variable we are depending upon what we put inside of us. And we don't think of it that way most of the time. We think of ourselves as ourselves. I'm sure you think of yourself as Rhonda Patrick. But Rhonda Patrick relies on a bunch of fucking chemicals to be Rhonda Patrick, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. It's not this one, like, this is a laptop. I'm not adding shit to this thing. Like, I can put programs in it and stuff, but I mean, everything in there is kind of worked out.
Right.
There's a processor, there's a motherboard. It's all this junk is in place, and the electricity plugs into the back, and it's not really variable. The human body's so fucking variable and pliable and malleable. There's so many different things that you can do to make yourself better. Like, I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's not a physical fitness guy, and he's kind of a nihilist, I guess you would say. Mm-hmm. I never say that word. I just read it.
I think it's nihilist. Yeah.
Nihilist. And he's a bit of a curmudgeon, and he's like, what's the point? Like, really, what is the point? I mean, you're always doing all this martial arts and exercise. I go, okay, if I could give you a pill, and that pill would turn you essentially into a super person. Like, you can do shit that you can't do now. You could lift weights you can't lift. You could beat people up. You could do physical fitness feats that, what you right now are totally insurmountable and outside the realm of possibility. Would you take that pill? So simple. And he goes, no, I wouldn't. I go, you wouldn't. Okay. If I could give you a pill that would prevent you from being a decaying old man, and you could stay in the state you are right now, would you take that? He's like, yeah, I probably would take that. I go, well, that's how it feels like to me, motherfucker. Like, that's how it feels like to me. Like, you're a decaying old man.
Yeah.
Like, he's not much, I think he's a year older than me. But he looks like he's 50 years older than me. I mean, his body's all humped. He's got a little paunch. Yep. He doesn't have any muscle tone. And I'm like, dude, all of that is just physical fitness. Like, you're not broken. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. But if you got on like a steady yoga routine and started doing some resistance training and started maybe swimming or something like that, a year from now, you would have a completely different body. And so talking to me, I'm like, I've done it my whole life. So like stuff that I can do stuff that you don't think is possible. And to me, it's like 2 times a week, 3 times a week I do that stuff. Like, this is not, like, your body is like a race car that you can juice up yourself. Like, you can add the fat tires. You can add the improved suspension. You can beef up the horsepower in the engine. You could do all that yourself. Or you could just choose to have this shitty body that's always falling apart on you. Right.
I mean, what you and I are both choosing to do is, we're both kind of obsessed with nutrition and aging and being, as optimal as we can in terms of our health. But ultimately, what we are doing is delaying the aging process by switching on all these switches and exercise and getting all the micronutrients and avoiding the refined sugar, which is causing inflammation and all that stuff. And it's really because that stuff is part of the aging process, and it accelerates the aging process, where I don't think people that don't do this stuff realize that. It's like, it's not just about looking good.
Right.
It's about aging. It's about like being older and being fit and being mentally sharp and not being, degenerate and decrepit. And how awful would that be to be like 60, which is young? I mean, 60 is still young, and to be like,
broken.
Broken.
Yeah, which is really common.
It's super common.
Especially for sedentary people.
Exactly. For sedentary people. Most sedentary people are people that also choose to eat terrible diets. Yes. So it's like, not only are they sedentary, they're also eating crappy food and not getting all the nutrients they need. So it's just like this mega explosion, dynamite of just bad.
Yeah, increasing inflammation. I think intelligent people, like my friend, he is intelligent, and I think he connects vanity with those things, and he thinks vanity is for fools, and he thinks it's a trait that he finds reprehensible. He just doesn't like it. He sees people that are, whatever. Maybe it's flashy clothes. Maybe it's, the way they wear their hair. Whatever it is that he thinks is preposterous. He connects that with physical fitness. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, but it's your vehicle. It's like how you get through this life, and it's how you think. It's so many different things that are all connected into one super organism, which is the life that you're living. It's you know, I think everybody knows now. I mean, it's not something we grew up knowing, but everybody knows now about your gut biome. This is a really huge factor in how you exist as an organism, or as maybe even an organism is the wrong word, because we're essentially ecosystems. You know, and we're in charge. This weird consciousness that has all this resistance and has all this inclination towards comfort and fucking off and blowing things off is what is in charge of making all these things happen that keep this ecosystem healthy. It's almost like if Earth itself had like a shitty manager. You know, if like there was a natural manager of Earth that was like, oh God, who cares if it rains? Oh God, you know, like I'm gonna stop growing things. I don't give a shit anymore. It's all stupid anyway. I mean, it's literally like the
just blow it up.
Yeah. Fuck it. Let's just kill all of life. It's all gonna die eventually. I mean, the sun only lasts 7 billion years. And
you see, that is the perspective a lot of people take with aging, where it's like, well, you're going to die, you're going to age, you can't stop aging. And it's like, yes, you're right, but that's not the point. The point is to age better. Like, that's the point. The point is to increase your health span, you know, and that is, we know is possible. Like, that can be, there's some of these like centenarians and super centenarians I've seen that are like, over 100 years old, and they're like riding bikes and racing, and it's like, they're old. They are very old.
But they're experiencing a very good quality of life.
Yeah.
And they're experiencing a quality of life that these other people that don't exercise they physically feel their own body diminishing, and they just feel it's inevitable. It is what it is. You're wasting your time. You're out there running around. But no, we're not, because this experience right now, it's not like, no one's under the illusion that you're going to live forever, but you are enhancing the experience that you're currently involved in right now. And you are alive. Right. You are alive. You do experience this life. But do you experience this life optimally? Is it as enjoyable as it can be? And we all know that there's a spectrum for that enjoyability. Like, we've all had times in our life where it's not been so great. And then times in our life where everything came together and like, what a fucking great day. Woo! Like, make more of those. Like, you can make more of those. And then the whole thing's better. And I think when that whole thing is better, it affects everybody you touch, everybody that's around you, everybody you come in contact with. And that in turn, I mean, it sounds so grandiose, but in turn can affect the entire race of human beings.
I agree. Totally agree. And I love the way you put it about like the feeling good. It's not just about, staving off cancer. It's not just about what's going to happen 20, 30 years from now. It's about now. It's about not being depressed. We know that. It's about feeling better. It's about being smarter. It's about having more executive function, having more long-term planning, less emotional amygdala, anxiety. That is like right here, right now. That is happening. That is, so, it's not just long-term effects, which you also are, also affecting, which is very good. So it's like a win-win. You're not just affecting the future. You're affecting right now, how you feel, how you perform. It's an important concept that I continue to try to get across to people. And
it also will optimize everything else you do, whether it's creative pursuits, whether it's relationships that you get into. A lot of those things are predicated on how you feel as you enter them, how you feel when you participate in them, and you can enhance that. You can enhance that, and I mean, there's a weird thing that people do where they want to pretend they're not trying to do better. I'm fine. Everything's great. Like, it's not. That's not true. You're putting out effort. It's a matter of you have a mindset, or you have a connection in your brain with putting out more effort and connecting that to discomfort. And that connecting things to discomfort. Have you ever? Stephen Pressfield has a book called The War of Art. I've brought it up in this podcast a million times. I actually have a copy of it. I'll give it to you afterwards, because I bought like 50 copies of it. And I hand it out to people. It's great. And he's been on this podcast before. And his book is essentially mostly about the creative pursuit. And it's about resistance that people feel when you should write, or you should paint, or whatever you should sculpt, whatever these things are that you pursue. And that there's this thing that comes up that tries to keep you from doing that, this resistance. And he's like, this is a battle that you will fight for the rest of your life. But the key is to fight it, not to give in. Don't give in to that resistance. Just to fight that resistance. And in doing so, every day you do so, you have won the battle for that day. And you will continue to fight that battle. And if you continue to fight that battle with that same mindset, you will win. And this is a guy that, like, up until the time he was 40 years old, he was basically a loser. He wasn't doing well. He was like a failed writer. And then he kind of just figured it out and got his shit together and then wrote books about it. And now he's like a really accomplished author. And it's an amazing story. And he's a really cool guy, too. I had him on for a podcast. And, you know, in his enthusiasm and the way he approaches it in this book is like, it's very pragmatic. Like, you can see the steps, and he lays it all out in a way that's very easy to digest.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to read it. I mean, I think that's something that's a very important part of the human experience, is pushing past that resistance to whatever. So. And you're right. Once you do it, you get better at it next time too. I mean, it's still there, but you do get better at it next time.
There's also a problem, I think, that what it comes up when you and I are doing these podcasts, where there's so much data. There is so much to take in. I mean, we have done how many podcasts now? Like 6 or 7?
This is the 6th one.
Yeah, lot. And every one of them is 3 hours of like, what in the fuck? How does she know all this? And just notebooks. Like when I put it up on Twitter, you know, that you're going to be here, everybody's like, get your notebook out. I mean, that's like the #1 response in the comments.